everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Little Italy of Los Angeles podcast. Joining me today is Dina Morrone. Thanks so much for being here, Dina.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thanks to you.
I'm so excited that this worked out and you're here. You are just an amazing person, a talented person. You're an actress, you're a writer. You write for theater. In fact, you have two very, very successful plays here in Los Angeles, right? At Theater West. I'm going to have you tell us a little bit about that and a fascinating life growing up, the daughter of Italian immigrants. So there's a whole lot that we can talk about. And I know you're very excited about our Little Italy area down in Los Angeles. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you. And I am very excited about the Little Italy, finally, this
Right?
wonderful Little Italy. And when I first moved to Los Angeles from Rome, I'm originally, I'm Italian, but I was born in Canada and then lived in Rome, Italy. When I moved to Los Angeles, I really felt the need to find a place that was Little Italy. And there really wasn't. There was an Italian restaurant, an Italian cafe, a few Italian friends, and that was about it. And so this
Well,
is really huge. This is incredible, and this is finally someplace we can send tourists to, we can send our families to, and just a nice place to spend the day.
look, we've got a lot planned down there. We've already got some fantastic restaurants there. We're right there by the waterfront. We have a farmer's market. We've got events that we're doing, but it's a little hard, now with COVID. But gosh, I mean, once things loosen up and open up, I think we're just going to be roaring. I mean, you're right. LA has not really had a Little Italy district until now. So you'll be a part of that. So thank you.
Also,
So,
the historical aspect of it, Deborah, the historical aspect of where it is, and some people with the fishermen. And I think that's also very important, the location. It's wonderful.
oh, beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about, we're going to get into the theater that you do here in LA, which is wildly successful, but you've had quite a life. Talk to me a little bit about growing up. You grew up in Canada, in a pretty large Italian population there. Both your parents came from Italy. What was it like growing up Italian in Canada? You told me you felt a little bit like a, if you will, a fish out of water, right?
Fish out of water is a great way, a great description, because a lot of immigrants feel like they're a fish out of water, not just Italians. No matter where you go, even here in Los Angeles, if you're from another country, you come here, you do feel like you don't fit in and you're out of place. So growing up, it was that. You grow up in a family of Italian immigrants. I'm first generation Canadian. My parents didn't speak English. I learned to speak English in kindergarten. And so we only spoke Italian, and our food was different. Everything about us was different. And although there was a large Italian community, I grew up in a city of only 100,000 people. So
Mm.
you say there's a lot. It was a nice community. We had an Italian church with an Italian mass. Everything was Italian about it. We celebrated the saints. We had an Italian hall. We still have a hall, and we still have an Italian church, but it's changed. It was very Italian. All these Italian families congregated in the church and in this hall. And it was part of just who we were growing up, who I was growing up. But you still felt like a fish out of water. You felt like you just didn't quite fit in. There wasn't a Little Italy in my hometown. So you didn't have that place. It was just the hall or the church. And there were kids in your school that were Italian, but I grew up thinking, like a lot of children of immigrants, you have to speak for your parents, you have to translate, you have to read a label or a letter that comes in the mail because they don't understand it. And so you become an adult at a very young age, learning how to navigate all of this. And then you feel you just don't feel like you're in the right place, because you don't feel like you are Italian, and you don't feel like you are Canadian or American, as my parents used to say, because they used to say, they came to America. So it was very hard.
Right.
Didn't quite fit in. You're like, am I Italian? Am I Canadian? So when you were with your friends, I feel so Canadian. And then when you're at home, you're like, I'm so Italian. But then when you got around somebody who was from Italy, you felt like, am I Italian? Am I Canadian? What am I? And that leads to my play, that one of the plays you mentioned called Moose on the Loose. I wrote this play because it was a true story that happened. I called my mother from Los Angeles, and some fires were raging here in LA, and there was mudslides in Malibu. And I was talking to my mother on the phone, and I said, it's really terrible what's going on here. And she said, oh, thank you, we are up in Thunder Bay. in the freezing cold where it's minus 40 Celsius. She said, the weather's,
Oof.
all we have to worry about is the snow and the cold. Thank God those things don't happen here. You know, what we can worry about is maybe like a moose gets loose. And I laughed. I thought it was a joke. And she said, no, there's a moose that got crossed the street from the bush across the street and got stuck in our Polish neighbor's backyard in the camper trailer. And I laughed and I thought, that moose is exactly where it's supposed to be, in the wilderness, in the place where I'm from. And maybe
Right.
not supposed to be there, you know, like we came, we took over the land, we built homes in the forest, and suddenly all the moose are. And I thought, that's what that moose must feel like. That moose must feel like a fish out of water. Like,
Just like you did.
just
Just
like,
like you did very often. Yeah.
so I,
You know what I love? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so the metaphor for my title of my play, Moose on the Loose, is that basically it's a metaphor for displaced people. And I identified with the moose, like all immigrants can identify with the moose. You sort of like
You know
feel.
what I You know what I love? You said that your mom said, "Oh, there's a moose on the loose at the Polish neighbor." I remember growing up, it was always like that. It's like the Irish people were across the street, the German one was like two houses down, right? Somebody from Czechoslovakia was over there. And it's like, I found it very odd that my parents would do that. Or like the Irish people across the street. I'm like, what? But people who came from elsewhere used to do that, right? It's like you were the Italian ones. There was like this pecking order, this hierarchy of people where depending upon where they come from. Did you have that too? Because I know I did. It's like, oh, Polish are over there, right?
Well, in fact, in the play, which is my life, it was the French people at the corner, the Finnish people next door, the Yugoslavians, the Italians from northern Italy, the Italians from another part of Italy, the Polish people, the Chinese family up the street, the Croatian lady. I mean, everybody had, and then the English people, you know, like the English
Right.
people, they're Canadian.
Well, and we were also talking about when you grew up, right? You were in school, and mom would make your lunches to go to school. Because I know I would go to school with this amazing, like every day was different. This tuna that I love that she would make and put little like things in it to make it special, and always the Italian bread from the bakery, always, or the fresh meatballs that she literally made like the night before. I had the best lunches. And you were saying you had that too, but you felt sort of different than everybody else because you had all that, right?
We had my mother's homemade bread, and we would have capicola or mortadella or something in our sandwiches. But it was hard. You would pull this out of a brown paper bag that maybe had a stain on it, and you pull this out and unwrap it. Like, I want to cry when I think about it because it's so emotional for me. But I realized how much love was in that, and
Oh
all
yeah.
we wanted was to fit in. It wasn't about lack of love or respect. It was just, you just want to fit in. So you wanted that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You wanted that bologna sandwich that you could say it was bologna. I have a very funny story to share with you about Italian food. But anyway,
I just have to say something. I felt great that I had the meatballs and a little bit of lasagna in a container. And the fact that everybody else was stuck with bologna on white bread, it's like, that's their problem. And the fact that their peanut butter and jelly was bleeding through their little brown paper bags, it's like, I used to feel sorry for them. That was one area where I was sort of happy that I didn't fit in. You know what I mean? But what's interesting is you said that you still needed to go out and find yourself, right? And you went to New York. Didn't you first go to New York after living in Canada,
first
right? And you,
no, I first went to Toronto from Thunder Bay, which is Toronto,
ah,
considered the big city. Yes, I did go to New York, but it was just for a convention, a modeling convention. I was 16 years old, and it was the first time in Manhattan, and I had no idea what New York was. I didn't even know it in pictures. And I landed, and I thought,
wow.
I belong here. I think this is where I should live. You know, coming from, my parents were from a town that was the size of a peanut, Perito in Calabria in southern Italy, tiny village. I'm from Thunder Bay, this tiny town, and then I land in Manhattan, and I'm like, I think this is where I should be. So yes, from New York, then I went back to Toronto and did my fashion studies there, and then I moved to Rome, Italy, and then to LA.
Right. What did dad say, right? Wasn't he like, wait, why? Are you just going to have babies anyway? Didn't he sort of like not get it?
None of this was in the plan or the program of raising children in Canada, especially raising a daughter like myself who really wanted to go elsewhere and search and discover. So it was very hard on my parents. I feel bad for them. Today, I can really feel the pain that they must have felt. At the time, I didn't, because I just feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I wanted to be there. So it was not easy for my father. He thought, well, a girl gets married, she has a family, she has kids. Why do you have to go do all of this when you're just going to end up doing that anyway? And I kept saying,
Yeah.
that's not what I'm going to do. So it's been an adventure. Done a lot of things that my parents did not expect for their children for me to do, because that they weren't raised with any of this. They didn't know ice skating and figure skating and modeling and acting and being on TV and traveling around as a free independent woman. That was not the plan. That's not how they were raised.
Let's talk a little bit about you being on TV. When you went to Rome, right? Now let's go to Rome. You were in Toronto, New York, back to Canada, then you went to Rome. You were pretty well known there, right? What were you doing? You sort of were like the ET of Italy, right? You were interviewing celebrities. You've got your Italian back. Talk to me about that.
I worked for Rye Television in
Right.
an area of Rye Television that at the time was divided in Rye 1, Rye 2, Rye 3, and then Rye 4. Rye 4 was the more national channel. So that's the channel that I worked for. It was a informative news show, and it talks about all the sort of the successes of Italy and Italians around the world. So that's what the show focused on, and I was the host of the show. But I was also a private, like I guess what you would call them here, like private network. Private. It wasn't Rye Skate Run. It was private, and that was the entertainment shows. So those were shows where we introduced movies that were going to be coming out of the movie theater. So it was like an Entertainment Tonight, where we had the host, and she would talk about the movie, and then the movie would come on, and then I introduced somebody who was going to be interviewing somebody at the Cannes Film Festival. I never personally did the interviewing. I never went to Cannes or any of the Venice Film Festival.
Right.
But
You were the host. You were the host. You were the anchor. You were the
exactly.
one that people look to. You had the reporters doing their thing. Right. How did you get that? I mean, a girl from Toronto, you go landing in Rome. How did you navigate that? That's a big thing.
A lot of it was just knocking. Really, everything I did, I just knocked on a door. And so the Rye thing, I mean, this is a crazy story, but I walked into the front lobby of Rye on Via Mazzini, and there was a man standing there, and I got to the front and I said, "Hi, I'd like to apply for a job."
Wow. You know what? But you could sort of do that then, right? You just sort of show up. You
So,
didn't have to send in your resume on LinkedIn or anything like that. You just sort of show up where people were and hope that somebody noticed you, right? So you show up there. You Go ahead.
I have to say, you just said something. You hope that somebody notices you.
Yeah.
So I left. I remember I was, in my 20s and blonde in Rome with a miniskirt on. So I show up in there, and there was a man who was going to talk about something. And the person at the front, who asks you questions behind the glass, always has a say in what happens, because he saw me. I was friendly. He knew I spoke English. He knew I spoke Italian. He knew I was from Canada. And
And you were blonde with a short skirt. Go ahead.
And so he said, go to this address for another division of Rome. And I went there, and I got to the front desk. There was a security guard behind a glass thing. And he said, sorry, can't come in here. Yeah, we're not seeing anybody. You don't have an appointment. You can't get in. And I said, oh, okay. Well, they sent me from, Viale Mazzini to come here. And he said, yeah, okay, just hold on a second. And then I heard him call somebody upstairs. And he said, yeah, I think you want to see her. And the guy must have asked, what is she like? They happened to be looking for a host in English to do these shows. They had a French
Wow.
host and an English host. And the guy came down and he said, yeah, come on upstairs. And we talked. He saw my resume and everything. And the rest is history. I got hired at Rye Television. They also wanted me to do radio, but I didn't, at the time, I didn't want to do radio because I just wanted to be on camera. And I was also acting and doing a lot of voiceover dubbing and print work.
Right. So, it's interesting. You didn't really feel like you belonged in that tiny little town in Canada. I get that. You love New York. That felt right. And landing in Rome, which is quite interesting because your family's from Italy and you really found yourself. It took you going back to Italy, right, where your roots were in the first place, to actually find who you were. And it's like, gosh, this is me. This is Dina, right?
Deborah, you just nailed it. It was getting off that plane and just breathing the air. I will never forget the smell of the air, not going there as a tourist, but going there to live. The air just, I just took it in and I just went, I'm home. This is, wow. Oh my gosh, this is where I belong.
Wow.
Everything about it.
Wow.
I walked into a store, like an alimentari store, like where they sell, alimentari, where they have like cheeses and olives and stuff. And I walked in and I went, oh, this smell is so good. But yet when I was growing up, that smell, people used to make fun of it. As a kid, they were like, oh, you went into that Italian store, smells like bad cheese and stuff like that. But being in Italy and smelling it, it was like these flavors.
It was home.
It was home. The
It
bread,
was home.
you could
It was
smell.
home.
It was wonderful.
So, two pretty extraordinary things happened to you in Rome. You met your husband, and I love that Bonnie Hunt, if anybody remembers Bonnie Hunt, the actress, sort of was the matchmaker. We'll get to that in a minute. But you also met and did some work with Fellini. Can you tell us about meeting Fellini? How do you meet Fellini? Like, what do? You knock on his door? Like, how did that happen?
That you could do at some during his career. There were many times people could line and meet him if he was doing an open call. This
Wow.
came to me through my commercial agent, who did not represent me for film and TV. And she said she had an audition for Fellini, and I thought she was joking. And so I didn't return her call. And I called her back. She called me back the next day and said, why didn't you return my call? Fellini wants to see you. And I said, Federico Fellini? She said, yes, he wants to see you. I said, what? You're not even my film agent. She goes, no, 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 it's a commercial for Banca di Roma. It's a merging of a couple of banks. He was going to be directing this commercial, and he wants to see you. And I thought, wow, Fellini's directing a commercial. So I got dressed up and went to see Fellini at Cinecittà. And when I walked into the waiting room, there were all these gorgeous girls, everybody with their bodies and their hair, and everybody's waiting to meet Fellini. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like the wrong place, and then I went up to the girl and I said, I have my appointment in about 5 minutes, but there's all these people ahead of me. She said, none of them have they're all just here waiting in case he can see them, but you have an appointment. So just take a few minutes and he'll be with you. And suddenly the door opens and Fellini comes out into the room and he says, Dina, prego. And I get up and I walk into his room. And this is all it's really the centerpiece of my one-woman show, this encounter. It lasted about an hour. In my play, it's about, 15 minutes, where I play Federico Fellini and I play myself. But right across from each other, just chair to chair, almost knee to knee. And we just talked. The room was a complete mess. It wasn't his office. He was there. It was a temporary office because he was using it temporarily because he was ready to start a production and he was going to be somewhere else. So there we were, sort of nose to nose, having this conversation. And I saw an ugly picture that was a headshot of mine on his desk with my hair up in a bun with reading glasses. And I thought it didn't look anything like me. And it was not a picture that I wanted my agent to ever show anybody, but she had it in her book. And when she met Fellini, he picked that picture. That's the casting process. Back then was that the agent would bring a big book with all the clients' pictures, sit down with the director, and the director would go through the book and say, I want to see her, I want to see her, and then he would take the headshots out of the heavy book and he would keep them. He had that headshot of me, and I said, oh my gosh, you've got this really ugly headshot of me. I have better pictures. And he was like, no, why do I need to see more pictures? I'm looking at you in person. So I him to look at the pictures, and then he explained to me why he had chosen this picture, what the picture meant to him. And I thought, and so
why did he choose that picture?
That the picture showed, it asked a lot of questions. What is she thinking about? What is she planning to do next? Is she thinking about a lover? He just thought there was so much depth in it, whereas the glamour picture of the blonde posing was just a nice picture, but it didn't have any no character. So I had the meeting went for, some time. And then he just basically said to me, I want you to work with me, but not in the commercial. That's basically already a done deal. Somebody else is going to do that. I'm secretly pre-casting a 6-part miniseries for Rai Television, which I will be directing in the late fall. And he said, I'd like for you to work with me, but when you work for me, I want you to be just like you are today, no acting. In other words, just the person I am talking to right now is the person I want to work with. None of this
That's right,
airs.
but that's why he's so phenomenal. He wants real people, not the actors. So I love it. So then what happened?
And so then what happened was a very sad story. This happened in July, and he was supposed to start working in the fall, and he didn't start because he wasn't well. And then it got pushed, and then it got pushed, and then at the end of October, Federico Fellini died.
So sad that he lost his life then.
Yeah.
And, in terms of an opportunity, it's sad that you lost out on that opportunity as well. But what an extraordinary moment to have met him and for you to have touched him. That's extraordinary. That's rare, Dina. That's amazing.
Beautiful encounter that I am fortunate to relive every time I work on my show and every time I rehearse my show, because he shared intimate details about how he felt as a human being and how he felt as a producer, as a director, as an artist, that I thought, is he talking to me? Like, why is he sharing
Wow.
with me? And he was just one of these, like, it was like this, yeah, kind of like this. And I thought, everybody thinks of Fellini, and here was Fellini sharing stuff with me I wasn't, famous or anything. So it was quite an
Yeah.
emotion. Now it's the centerpiece of my one-woman show, The Italian in Me.
But all of the truly extraordinary writers, directors, actors are just like that because they're so true to their craft, right? He doesn't look at himself as Fellini. He looks at himself as someone who's a person who wants to tell other people's stories. So I love that you touched him like that, Dina. I think that's so exciting. And then also in Italy, how'd you end up meeting your husband, and how did Bonnie Hunt, the actress, how did she end up sort of the matchmaker there? That's just such a funny story also.
So my husband was shooting a movie in Rome for Norman Jewison called Only You, starring Marissa Tomei, Robert Downey Jr., and Bonnie Hunt. And my friend, a fellow by the name of Egidio Cochimilio, who is a director, he's from Canada, he called me up and said, I'm going to be in Rome working with Norman Jewison on a project. And then there's going to be a huge cast coming over from the States for this movie. Would you help us coordinate some dinners and some going to clubs and stuff like that? I said, I'd love to, because I really knew Rome inside and out. It was my home. And so my very first dinner that I planned when all of us were getting together was going to be at this restaurant that served Bolognese cuisine, lots of tortellini and tortelloni, and just the best. Fellini ate there. This is why I brought everybody there, because this was Fellini's restaurant, his sort of restaurant. This is where he ate almost every day. This was in the evening that we were going. So I coordinated the dinner and with the crew. And then Bonnie called me up, Egidio called me up, and he said, oh, by the way, the editor, assistant editor just got into town. Can we add 2 more people to the restaurant, to the table, to the reservation? And so I said, yeah, okay. So I added 2 more people, and it happened to be my husband, who was the editor, and the assistant editor. And Stephen sat close to me so I could watch him and see what he was eating. He's very quiet. My husband's not a talkative. He likes to listen and observe. And so he wasn't doing a lot of the talking, but other people were. And he was just a very nice guy, but he wasn't gregarious or outspoken. He just was quietly eating his meal. And while everybody else was ordering very simple food, my husband ordered tortelloni di zucca, which is the pumpkin squash, stuffed in. That wasn't a very common thing in Los Angeles at the time. So a lot of people didn't know that. And I thought, this American guy is going to hate this pasta. He might not like the taste, but here he was savoring it. And I thought, well, look at him, just very quietly eating. And so we became friends. And because of editors working late hours, the rest of the crew would go out after they wrapped, and the editor and the assistant editor would be left to their own, devices at 9 o'clock at night. I happened to be living right in the center of Rome. And I said to Steve, if you ever want to have dinner, just let me know. I'd love to, hang out. And so we would go and have dinner. But I had a boyfriend. It was just friendly. It wasn't like, these are nice people. My friend introduced me to all of them. I happen to live here. I'm right next door, almost to the place, the residence he was staying in. So we got to be very friendly. And then one night, I met Bonnie through the production, and Bonnie Hunt, and we had lunch one day, and Bonnie said, "You know, that Stephen Rifkin, he's a really nice guy. He really likes you." And I thought, I was very awkward and uncomfortable for me because I had a boyfriend. We were kind of breaking up, but still. And then she
Oh,
went,
well.
exactly. And then she went to Stephen and said, "No, that Dina, she really likes you."
Oh my gosh.
And
I
so
love that.
I saw Stephen after that because we saw each other a lot with the crew, with Norman. We all had Thanksgiving together. Everybody from the crew and the cast, we were all together for Thanksgiving. I would get nervous around him because I thought, this isn't right. I just didn't feel right around it, and nor did he. He felt awkward, and always like this sort of like we wanted to talk to each other, but we didn't because it just didn't feel comfortable. So when we finally, my relationship was over in Italy, and I moved to Toronto. Stephen was editing his movie
Ah.
in Toronto, and we went out for dinner. Started talking, and the truth came out. Bonnie had said this to him, and Bonnie and we both looked at each other and said, "I didn't say that," and
Ah, I love that. She is adorable. Oh my gosh, she should have been like, I hope she was at your wedding when you guys got married.
We didn't really have a wedding. We had we did it in our own living room. We just had a justice of the peace, but we did have a dinner with Bonnie and Norman,
Oh,
Norman's
that's
wife.
it. Now, for people who don't know, let's tell people what is it that your husband does, because he's a very well-known man.
My husband is a picture editor. He's a film editor for feature films.
And his name is
Stephen Rifkin.
right. He's very well known for people in the business and even people not in the business. His name is just sort of everywhere. So, he's an artist also in his own right. So after this dinner, right, in Toronto, where you find out that Bonnie Hunt was the one trying to set you guys up all along, how did you end up in LA with him? How did that work out?
Stephen was just there editing a project, and once he was done doing Only You, he came back to LA. And my goal was that I was going to spend 6 months in LA anyway, before I even met Stephen. That was my goal. I was going to be in LA. I think just Destino, and the name of the movie originally was Destino before it was called Only You. So it's kind of was Destino that I was supposed to be coming to LA, and this person came into my life who was living in LA, and I came out to LA for what was supposed to be 6 months, and then I ended up staying. And I'm still here. I
And
got married 9 years ago.
wow, absolutely extraordinary. So, you were trying to find your way, right? Trying to find your way in LA, which could be difficult initially. But I love that you took a writing course, right? And you wrote your first one woman play, Moose on the Loose, right? At Theater West. Is that where you performed it? And that's in Studio City.
I performed it at my first, The Italian in Me. I performed over. I'm sorry, Deborah.
That's okay. Tell them to wait.
Someone's trying to call me from Canada, and they don't get the message when I tell them that I can't talk to them.
Happens all the time. Anyway, so which one did you write first? I thought you did Moose on the Loose first, no?
No, I did The Italian in Me.
Oh, okay. Italian and Me was first. Sorry about that. I got it sort of backwards. So you did Italian and Me, one woman show, and what's that about?
The Moose on the Loose play is about wait, did you say The Moose on the Loose or The Italian in Me first?
The Italian and Me. Which one? What is that one about? And I've seen it, but I want to tell our audience.
Me is the one about a young girl raised in an Italian family, moves to Rome and tries to work in the film business and tries to make her way, and knocks on a lot of doors, prays to a lot of saints, angels, and all kinds of priests, and doesn't quite get what she wants, and then meets Federico Fellini. That's why the Fellini story is in my play, and it's the centerpiece of my play. And then The Moose on the Loose, though, is about an Italian family. It's a nonno, the parents, the 4 children raised in Canada, the little great grandson named Timothy, and a moose that's sort of the narrator of the piece and of the play. And it is the story it's about change. It's about how difficult change is for an Italian immigrant that comes over to America and tries to find their way. There's the whole communication breakdown. There's the cultural differences of being raised in a country in America and your parents came from Italy. They have different cultural ideas of what they think you should be doing. And so it's um, it's very much based on my family, but it's not my family. The play is really about every Italian or immigrant family coming over. And but it's very touching because the nonno in the end tells us the story of why he came to America. And when he
Mm.
tells that story, I wrote the play and I still get teary eyed. And a lot
It's
of people,
abs. Look, there's so many people in the audience who see themselves in that play, no matter who you are and your background or when your family came to America. There's a little piece of all of us in that play, which is extraordinary. And the way that you act it is just beautiful. This is what you're meant to do. There's no doubt. The writing, the acting, it all came together. It's just extraordinary, Dina. And also, the Italian in me, which I remember when I saw that, and the whole Fellini part of my jaw dropped. I thought, gosh, what an extraordinary moment to be able to meet him, because I'm such a fan of his, and I never did meet him. And I have a friend who's worked with him as well in Italy. She's a filmmaker, and it's just someone that I would have loved to have met. And the fact that you um, came so close with him and that you had an impact on him is pretty amazing. Um,
well, they say right
so
what you know. They say write what you know. And so I feel whenever I write, I like to write what I know and I like to tell the stories of what stories I can share. I did a one woman show before I did The Italian in Me that was called Getting There by Going Nowhere. And it was 4 stories of 4 different women that tell their story. It's basically, they're
ah,
sort of, very different characters. One woman was from Texas. One was, just like a New York type woman. And there was one Italian who was this Italian diva in my show. And so anyway, there are these 4 women and they are telling their story. And when it was all over, I had someone come up to me and he said, everything you did up there, but that Italian story, no one can do that Italian story but you. I said, no, 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 no. I want to be able to play other characters. I want to do the woman from Texas. And he said, Dina, you lived the Italian experience. You are Italian. You can tell those Italian stories like nobody can because you are Italian. Leave those stories to the girl from Texas. And I got very upset and I said, no. And then I took his advice and that's how I started working on The Italian in Me and Moose on the Loose and these other stories that I have and these other monologues and one person shows, because they are true to me and they are exactly who I am. But I never would have thought when I was growing up in an Italian immigrant family that one day I would make being Italian the thing that I would put out there for everybody to see and sort of like, here I am, this is who I am, Dina Morrone from, Italy, via Canada. So
I love that. I was going to say, if you were to, look at your life and come full circle, but you just answered my question before I even got to ask it. So you're also an editor over at Eden Magazine, which is an extraordinary online magazine, people. So please, look it up. It's they have some fantastic articles in there. By the way, oh, I think I was actually featured in that particular one right there on Eden Magazine.
yeah.
So I was featured in it as well. So that was a very exciting moment for me. So
I'm also a contributing writer for the magazine. So I do write pieces and I do edit all the feature pieces that you see, and the people who are featured they range, they can be doctors, the celebrities, artists, people that save the work for the environment and try to save the environment. It's all different. Marion really
yeah. So I know that you're working to open up again, right? Once theater can open, which I'm praying is soon, right? Little by little, we're starting to open up again over at Theater West in Studio City. Will you be doing your one-woman plays there again?
Yes, I will be doing my one woman show there again, and as soon as it's safe to do so. And also, Moose on the Loose was supposed to have a reboot October 2020, and it didn't happen. So we're
Right.
looking to a reboot whenever it's safe to do so. That will also be opening up there. I'm also on the artistic board at Theater West. I'm the co-chair, and so or vice chair. I'm not sure. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time during this pandemic working very hard to keep the theater going because the arts have suffered, theater has definitely suffered, and theaters have closed. And our theater has been going for 57 years. We're going on 58 years, founded and started by the famous Betty Garrett, the actress, and many others that started it. And I just would just hate to see it die during a pandemic. So the group of us from the board, we just got together and we worked very hard to try and keep the theater alive. And we are alive, and we're working towards opening, and we're thriving.
But we'll be there. We will absolutely be there, Dina. I mean, you let us know when you're opening. We'll announce it on our pages. I think that's fantastic. I really enjoyed having you, just sharing your story about coming from this small little freezing town in Canada and actually finding who you really were by going to Italy. And now here you are sharing all those experiences living in Los Angeles. And I just think that's really wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience at Little Italy, Los Angeles, and everywhere?
Actually, bringing that Italianness to Los Angeles, bringing my stories and being of who I am to Los Angeles is really important, because when I first moved to Los Angeles, I had come out here to study acting before I even came out here with my husband. And I remember going into a restaurant and ordering a cappuccino, and someone put coffee and whipped cream on top. And I thought, wow, this is not Italy or Italian. And now we have a Los Angeles that is very diverse, not just Italian, but very diverse. I love it. There's so much Italian here. Even the Academy Museum that's going to be opening, this wonderful, Motion Picture Academy Museum, was designed by Renzo Piano, an Italian architect. I mean,
we've got to get them on our show. That's fantastic. Let me know.
Please, I will.
That's phenomenal.
There's so much Italian here now, and it's just the right time for Italians. So many, even with the pandemic, scientists and doctors have done things, but right in Los Angeles, just this large Italian community. I belong to an organization called Le Dive, the DIVE, which is plural for diva, but it really stands for Donne Italiane che vivono all'estero, Italian women who live abroad. And we meet and we have our, fun social events, but sometimes we do things like, we'll listen to a doctor maybe speak about something, or a scientist, or we'll go see an architectural, exhibition. And it's another way to keep in touch with Italian women.
Yeah.
And slowly, this Italian community in Los Angeles is becoming a stronger and stronger. I do encourage any kind of Italian performance or film or anything in the arts to make sure that this keeps going. And I know they're doing their best to keep it going, because I think that's important, because it won't just be for Italians, be for everybody.
It's for everybody. Oh, Dina Morrone, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed our time together. I wish we could have had twice as much time, but perhaps we'll just have to have you back, especially once the play opens again, right? We'll have to have you back. That'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you to everyone on your team and everybody that, we've been emailing, and people today. Thank you to everybody.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Dina Morrone, please look her up on all of her social media pages. We'll share that as well. And soon her play or plays will be back at Theater West. So we'll keep you apprised for all of that as well. So I appreciate you joining us, everybody, today on our Little Italy of Los Angeles podcast with Dina Morrone. My name is Deborah Zara Kobylt. I am your host, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.